So hi, my name is Sam Scott. I think I'm your third speaker. Everybody obviously looks ready. In America, it's hard to imagine the true brutality of the world. We can hardly connect with the reality that is Islamic extremist terrorism. However, even though we feel like we're in our own sheltered world here, it's important to analyze our policies and really look to see if they're actually being successful at containing our allies. This is especially important in the recent attacks on Jakarta, which is why I'd like to answer the question, does the recent attack on Jakarta, indicate that ISIS is growing unchecked? My answer to this question would be yes. It does indicate that ISIS is growing unchecked. It indicates that they're able to accomplish their goals of creating terror in the world, and that our methods that we're using to constrain them simply are not effective. So before we get into exactly how they're growing unchecked, let's look at exactly what happened on this attack. According to the Associated Press on January 14th of this year, so on the day of the attack, there were 5 attackers who basically attacked the capital of Indonesia. It started with a suicide bomber in a Starbucks who detonated his suicide vest at about 10:50 that day. When everybody was running out of the building, there were gunmen waiting outside, which ended up killing 1 man. At the same time, in other parts of the city, 2 more suicide bombers detonated their bombs, killing another civilian. In the end, all 7 of the attackers were killed either by their own bombs or by the police, and it left 2 civilians dead. Now, while this seems like an insignificant attack in the face of very large terrorist attacks such as 9/11, it's important to realize that this is actually accomplishing ISIS's goals and leading to terror around the world. The first point I'd like to look at is, what are the goals of ISIS? According to the Asian Times on January 15th of this year, so just the day after the attack, ISIS was reported saying that they are looking to gain a foothold in Asia. Their goal is to get this foothold in Asia, and this attack on the city is this foothold. Before this attack, according to Times News, also on January 15th, they had never had an attack on Indonesia. This was their first attack in this area of the world. So they're clearly starting to expand into this area of the world as they've never attacked here before. Now they've made this attack. This is lining up perfectly with their goals of expanding around the world, eventually to supposedly form the Caliphate, this worldwide Islamic organization. The second point is the terror that they're creating, and how that's actually proving that they're expanding. Now, ISIS is credited with this attack. They have come out multiple times on the day of the attack, on the day after the attack, saying that yes, they claim responsibility to it. In the Atlantic on January 14th, it was reported that they did claim official responsibility for this attack. Well, it didn't do a huge amount of damage. There weren't that many people actually killed or injured in this attack. What it did was it proved to the world that they have the power to do these actions. They're a strong terrorist organization, and they can accomplish their goals that they're looking at accomplishing in these areas of the world. Also in the Atlantic on January 14th, in that same article, they claimed that this attack was carried about by the soldiers of the Caliphate, basically also signifying their goal of expanding into the rest of the world, and expanding into the rest of the world. So ISIS's image, their image of power in this area is obviously increasing. They're showing that they have this power and that they can use it. But also expanding is their unity. Now, in Indonesia is no stranger to Islamic terrorism. They're one of the world's largest, they have the world's largest Islamic population, but they also have a huge amount of Islamic extremist groups. So they do have terrorist attacks quite often. However, recently, on January 15th, in Time News, so the day after attack also, 22 of Indonesia's Islamic extremist groups pledged allegiance to ISIS. ISIS is succeeding in not only expanding into these areas of the world, but bringing the other extremist groups into them, increasing their power, and showing that they really are a force to be reckoned with, and they can actually execute these attacks. They're successfully creating their worldwide terrorist caliphate. So now we can see that the first part of the question, that they are expanding, is definitely true. They are clearly expanding into Indonesia. They're clearly expanding to meet their goals. But the second part of this question, that they're growing unchecked. What's the world doing to prevent ISIS from actually being able to accomplish these? As we look into our third point of how they're unchecked, we'll see that we really aren't doing that much. Now, the United States normally stands as somebody who's going to go against this evil, these these evil organizations, somebody who will take a stand against them. However, our current methods to fight ISIS are actually pretty inefficient. Airstrikes are our primary attack against ISIS right now. However, according to an officer at the U.S. Navy Reserve, and who's also at the Navy War College on CNN, in 2014, he said that our current strategy of airstrikes against ISIS is destined to fail. While it seems like it's a good approach, it's not actually going to be stopping ISIS as they're growing. It's an ineffective approach, and for that reason, the United States isn't successfully constraining them. ISIS is able to grow even as these airstrikes are happening because they're not actually doing any damage against their organization. So the United States isn't constraining ISIS that much. However, another thing that's not constraining them is the whole instability on the world economy right now. Now, recently, oil prices have actually plunged down, making oil very cheap around the world. Because of this, according to the Business Insider on January 21st of 2016, this is actually causing ISIS to be able to expand even more. Because as the world economy is weaker, as there's more instability, they can basically fill that vacuum of instability and take power. So we can see that both the United States isn't doing anything against ISIS, and the world economy is moving in their favor to react unconstrained. At the end of the day, yes, ISIS is expanding. These attacks prove that ISIS is able to expand into Southeast Asia and accomplish their goals. But moreover, they prove that we need to reassess our policy. They prove that the policy that we have in place right now is inefficient at stopping them. What this officer said about our policy being inefficient is true, and that ISIS can in fact grow and accomplish these goals. What this proves is that ISIS is growing, but it also proves that they're growing unchecked. That's the most important thing. The United States is actually not doing anything against them to stop them. Thank you.